Thanks.
We've got Oumar Dieng joining us. So we're going to bring Oumar over. Good afternoon.
How are you guys doing?
We're good. How are you doing? Nice background.
Oh, thank you. I'm camped in my living room right now.
That is beautiful. It's funny. I was just talking to one of our hosts today. I said, your house is beautiful. I said, can we see another side of your house? A beautiful background. Your shirt, he kind of blends in with everything. Oumar has a podcast.
Omar looks like he has a painting behind him of one of the pieces we have right above me.
It's beautiful.
You see that?
Oumar, where are you located?
I am actually in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and that's a very old, it's actually a piece of fabric from Senegal, where I'm originally from. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. You're in Venezuela?
Now I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, in
I am
Minnesota,
originally
okay.
from Senegal. Right.
See, I know. I should actually find out where people are from, but
No, that's all right.
It's okay. No worry about it.
tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Motivational Voice Podcast. It's a podcast that I started actually about 5 years ago because I just felt that I wanted to share some positive vibes and some just tips and tricks on mindset and positivity and just anything that would get people to realize that while life can throw challenges your way, you can really always overcome those challenges.
And you talk a lot about goal setting. And you've done
That's
a
right.
podcast I was listening to that we started off 2020. Now, we sort of did things different here. So June came and we did New Year's. On the end of June, we
Right.
did another New Year's party. And then a couple weeks ago, we did Christmas in July. Next, we're going to move back into Thanksgiving. So when I was
Right.
looking at all of your information, I thought, let's reset our goals now maybe for 2020 because people want it to be over. Well, it's not. So let's embrace where we are and maybe relook at our goals, some of the things that you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone sets goals, which is really the easy part. But the most challenging part is not only setting those goals, but following up on those goals. And I feel like most people do a bad job at circling back and saying, hey, wait a minute, what happened to that goal of joining the gym and losing 5 pounds?
And what about goals as far as business? So I always look at it from a business perspective. And clearly the goals you set in 2020, January 1st for business, have changed.
Absolutely. I think the key thing that you need to do when it comes to goal setting is to actually reevaluate. You should really reevaluate your goals, especially from a business standpoint. I would say at least quarterly at a minimum to figure out what has changed since the beginning of the year and make adjustments throughout the year, including not just at the end of the year, but of course in the middle of the year. Because as you know, a lot of people didn't see COVID-19 coming in January, when businesses had to adjust and completely change their goals and reset and adjust based on the current situations with the coronavirus. So one of those key aspects of goal setting is really to be able to go back and say, hey, I did set a goal, now it's time to go back and say, do I need to either scrap that goal altogether or shift it into something else? So that's a very key piece that people really need to make sure that they do.
And how do we make that assessment? I go back to fight or flight. There's a fine line in my mind of quitting and saying, I'm not going to do that. There's nothing I can do right now. Or reassessing, or do we continue to pursue those goals? How do we make that determination of, do we want to reassess it? Do we want to move on? That didn't serve us and keep going. How do we make that adjustment?
Yeah, I think the adjustment would be based on your original goal. So for a business, for example, if you say that, well, our goal was to hit a certain figure, let's say it's 100,000 for by the time you finish the month, but then coronavirus hits, clearly that goal is going to have to either be abandoned or shift. And the way you decide is to look and see if it's feasible for you to continue. So I'll give you a specific example. If you own, let's say, a restaurant and you realize that everything is shut down, you are likely not going to hit that $100,000 goal. However, you can shift your actions. So if your goal was to hit 100,000 and you broke it down to say, okay, by mid-month I want to make 50K, but then that changed. So what you need to do really is say, all right, let's change that goal and change the projections that we made, because we know that people are not going to be dining in, but we may have a chance to reopen and have some people dining outside of the restaurant. So that will bring in maybe 60% of our goal or 40% of our goal. So in that case, you can keep that goal. But in certain other situations, you may have to actually change the goal completely or drop it and do something completely different. So it can be circumstantial.
How did you get involved with the podcast?
Yeah, so the podcasting for me was a natural way for me to share. I do motivational speaking, and a little bit of my background. I grew up, as I mentioned at the top of the call, in Senegal, West Africa. And one thing that happened in my life actually was when I was 15 years old. My family was attacked by a mob with machetes and weapons, and we actually had to flee our home country to go to a different country. And as a result of that, what I learned was I had to spend some time in a refugee camp. And what I learned from there is that you can overcome struggles. And the way I survived that really was to stay positive and think about the next day and look at the world from a glass half full rather than a glass half empty approach. So that positive mindset that really helped me survive that, but also go on and come to the United States and have a successful professional career. What really got me through that was looking at the world from a positive standpoint and always shifting your mindset in terms of if you hit a challenge. You need to know how to change your thinking and not be the victim, because that just gets in the way. To me, every time you hit a challenge, every time you overcome it, life is actually preparing you for the next challenge. And every time you successfully pass one of those challenges, you become stronger, not just emotionally, but psychologically, and you tend to hit your goals a lot more and a lot better. So that message of positivity and motivation is what caused me to want to share that knowledge with a wider public. So.
And I love the way you brand. I hadn't seen you. I was just listening to your podcast, and he has brief snippets on his site. So you can listen to a minute. And then there's a link that says to listen to the complete podcast, and you can click over. And there's something about his voice and delivery that I just thought, I got to meet this guy and how you do it and what you talk about. And here we go again, and the stories and how he resonates.
Well, I want to touch on the base, that you want to bounce back and don't let negative things get you down. It seems like in our business, there's more negative than positive until you overcome and you get over that hill. And a lot of it has to do with our own perspective. We think that we're not doing a good enough job. I got kids in here who are just Da Vinci's with cameras and film and everything else, and they never think it's good enough, but it is good enough. They just gotta believe in themselves a little bit more. What do you say to somebody to keep them going?
Yeah, I think especially younger kids or people who are just starting their careers, the key thing you need to remember is at that point in your life, everything is a stepping stone. And if you see that from the perspective that this is a stepping stone, it's a test for you to be more successful because you're going to be facing more challenges in your life, then you can't help but think positively about your current situation. It's not good enough now is not the mindset you should have, but where you are at right now in your life, this is good enough. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't aim higher. It just means that where you are now is, again, a stepping stone to something greater. And to give you a specific example, when I first came to the United States, and this was 20 plus years ago, I had to just find jobs to survive and help out or help my wife. And I worked in the restaurant industry. I worked in the DC area as a banquet server. I worked as a server, as a host. And I never, at any point in my life, thought this is beneath me. And what that did for me is it created not only connections, but some skills, some soft skills that later became really, really key to me getting certain jobs in my life because I had those experiences.
Soft skills. Nice words, the way to phrase it and put it.
It's always the delivery.
And are you a motivational speaker? This is a full time, or do you do this on the side?
Yeah, right now I do it on the side, although at the beginning of the year, my goal was to ramp it up. But of course, COVID-19 happened. So far I've given about a handful of speeches virtually, which is great, but really different from seeing an audience and being in front of them.
And what is your main audience? What is your demographic target?
Millennials for the most part, although I do have some Gen Zers, so generally people between the ages of 25 and 45, which hits right that millennial to Gen Z generation.
And it's about going forward, setting goals.
Yeah, it's about mindset, positivity, and just getting unstuck in life. Because a lot of people nowadays, especially, will go on really on remote control, if you will, in our careers, in our lives. We turn a certain age and then we realize, wait, I've never really thought about this, but am I happy with my job? Am I happy with my relationship? Am I happy in my life? What do I need to do to get rid of that getting stuck feeling and be able to be happy with where I am and be clear and unstuck in life?
To get unstuck. And it's a whole nother generation we've been talking about. What I'm loving about our platform, and I say this over and over again, is the amount of different people we get to reach out to. And now education is so on the forefront. Kids going back to school, but now it's affecting our millennials. Are they going back to college? And I know someone that was supposed to start college in 2 weeks. They were planning their trip up there and they got an email from the school yesterday that says, nope, no in-person college. We will refund on housing, food, and dorms. And everything is now done online, at least for the first semester. So it's re-looking at this for millennials and Gen Z and saying, all right, I was supposed to go, but now I'm not.
Right.
And the whole experience, it's more than the education of college. Your college experience, everything you thought has now shifted. And how do we address it? And here you are talking to this exact demographic.
Yeah, absolutely. And a quick story for you is that one of my sons, my middle son, who is now 19, was in Japan studying abroad when this coronavirus issue thing happened. And he had to actually come back. And I have an older son, 20-year-old, who's also about to start school, but everything had to be scrapped. So again, it's another challenge that life is throwing our way, and we need to figure out how to deal with it. And one thing that millennials especially, they get a lot of flack for not being hard workers and being lazy, but actually millennials now are starting to have children, buy homes and buy cars. They have a pretty decent work ethic, including Gen Zers, but people just don't quite understand that they are really more powerful and more mature than we give them credit.
We got to pay some bills, so we're going to go to Selena and we'll stay right there, and then we'll come back. We got 2 more sets left, so we're going to go 10 after.
All right. How do we find your podcast, Oumar?
Yeah, just go to my website, or you can type the Motivational Voice Podcast on any platform. You'll find it. But my website, oumardieng.com, and you'll get a link.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. A fantastic message. Check it out. I love his
Absolutely.
delivery. Have a great day. We're going to kick this over to Selena.